Welcome back to the Optional Boss Podcast. This is episode 20, where we always give a certain amount of time that we're actually going to make the episode, and then times that by 20. That sound about right, Tyler?
Yeah, what are we shooting for? Nice, short, sweet hour or so? And
well,
if we actually accomplish
let's say
that,
5 minutes.
Well, okay, so if we say 5 minutes.
5 minutes, it might turn out to be an hour.
Intro, ramble, topic, and yeah, that's 5 minutes.
Yeah, something like that. So, okay. Today we were talking about demos and demo discs and just, well, demos don't come on discs anymore, but demos. How many times can I say demos in the next 5 minutes?
Is that why this is 5 minutes? Because this is only a small demonstration podcast, a small taste of what is to be available for them. The shareware trial version? No, we did DOS already. That just means the full episode is just actually hidden in the code, and you just got to crack it.
This is fair. This is true. Yeah. Is there a boss key?
Is there a boss? We got to get one of those like decryptor discs, as you mentioned, and that's how people can listen to us.
Or is the boss key optional?
Ah! Title drop. Don't you love us, folks?
That was stupid. Today we're talking about demos, and to start off, we're going to do our little rambly intro, just kind of, at the end, let's be honest, it kind of warms us up to actually get to the topic at hand. So, Tyler, what have you been up to?
It's on brand. This is the brand that we are selling people. It is rambles and topic and good times for all. I have been juggling too many things because I had the dilemma of playing 2 long games that I'm still playing, and then getting more games that I want to play. And it's becoming problematic. So, we got to be like 3 or so episodes in where I'm still playing Tears of the Kingdom, which I said the right title this time. Go me.
And in all fairness, that is a pretty big game.
It is a pretty big game. And I am at the point where there's so much more to do, but I'm ready to beeline for the actual, main meat of the game, because it's the kind of game you can always go back and do the additional stuff later. But
yeah, you get the extra bun after the mashed potatoes.
I have cheese biscuits after for this, so that's a nice reminder. That's my reward for beating Zelda, a nice cheese biscuit. But I'm making my way. I'm still enjoying it. It's a great time. And again, the dilemma with actually finishing it is because it is distractions the game. Also, still playing Final Fantasy V on the side. Not as much. I haven't got the time to, but that's kind of, like I said, old pair of slippers. I can hop into that guy anytime, and we are just set for a good time. On top of that, though, so I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but I have recently joined the fine club of owning a PS5. And
yes,
it's kind of great. I will admit. I've never been the type to be the most on the current gen. I usually pick up pretty late, and I mean, admittedly, still we're 3 years into the PS5 now.
Yeah, it's what one could assume is almost half its life cycle.
It's hard to say these days. They get longer or shorter each time. We could be around the corner from the 6 or the 5 Pro, which admittedly, I don't know how you make this thing more pro other than giving it more memory, but it is. And I'm not really, like I said, the type to be too up on the most current, but it does feel next gen, which is quite nice. I have been enjoying, the detail in the controller, gimmicky it may be. It is actually pretty cool. What do they call it? The haptic feedback.
Yep.
And that's been interesting. And
Okay. Oh. Did you launch Astro's Playroom?
A little bit, yes. I tried it out last night, and it's very charming. It's really funny because it's basically just Mario 64, but the references are incredible, and I'm not getting them all. I'm not a diehard PlayStation person, but it is actually pretty cool to see some of those deep cut references. Well, there's the one point I can't remember what the location's called. It's like Memory Meadows or something. It's inside the PlayStation, and it's a very friendly place inside my PlayStation, apparently. But you see off in the distance, there's like one of the little robot characters, and he's falling off of a ledge, and this large gray feathered bird like picks him up and puts it back up. I'm like, oh, cool, that's the last Guardian. And it's interesting to see these little characters playing out the scenarios from like, just some solid PlayStation gems. It's very much trying to get me to buy a PS5 after I've bought a PS5. Like the game is just
it's there to make you realize that, okay, yeah, this was a safe purchase.
and I think it is an achievement called pain because I got hit in the face with a can. Yeah. And it does kind of feel like an advertisement, but I get it. It's solely a tech demo, and it knows it's a tech demo. But boy, did they ever pull out all the stops for the charm. Like, I think it does a good job of maybe not truly displaying how powerful the PS5 is. It's a very behind-the-scenes kind of power approach. But
yes,
you do at least get a good idea of, like, these are some of the interesting things your console can do.
I think it was more like, yes, it's showing the power of the PS5, but it's also like kind of showing the controller, what everything.
Yes,
it
seemed like
do.
the main focus was like these are the interesting things you could do with the controller, like the triggers that like have resistance and stuff. It's one of those things you can tell people about, but until you get it in your hands, it's almost kind of like VR, where like it's not something you can explain versus what you can actually tangibly do.
Well, you've heard about the resistance controllers and everything before.
I have.
It's like, okay, that's cool, whatever.
But
and now that you've actually done it,
when you feel
or used it,
or even just the little details, and I've noticed this with so again, it just got it, so I haven't really managed to fill out the library, but I just started Returnal today, which I have that's been like on the top of my when I get a PS5, like I want to check this out. It's really cool to see a AAA quality mainstream roguelike, which I know roguelikes are getting pretty beaten to the ground, which is unfortunate, but a good roguelike is a good roguelike.
Yes.
And, the theming and stuff impresses me, and I feel like this is the scary thing with the PS5 and most consoles that have, it was like the Switch with their HD Rumble. It was a really cool feature that only a small pocket of developers, most primarily like Nintendo themselves, utilize at like the start of it, and then it just stopped. It's almost like the 3DS and the 3D gimmick. Like eventually they just stopped making games that did it. So
yeah,
but when you feel the raindrops through the controller, like that stuff's cool.
Yes. I will say, like, some of the gimmicks on the controller, they don't get utilized as much as I'd like to see, but they are being utilized still.
There's a lot of things where you shoot stuff, so at least the triggers will get their intended bit of attention. Yes. I've been up to a few other things, but I will hand the floor over to you. What have you been up to lately?
Oh, I haven't had much time, to be honest, but I've been up to pretty much more the same. Never did finish Half-Life Alyx, so plugging away still a little bit at a time through that. And it's actually kind of funny. I got Diablo 4 and beat that. Did all the side quest achievements for it. And I've done most of the dungeons, and I was just waiting for the end game to release, the seasons to start. I'm going to dive into that.
You say you haven't had much time, but from my understanding of Diablo, if you accomplished all that, you've had a good amount of time.
Well, I've had to reduce sleep.
Yes. Sometimes sacrifices must be made.
That old trope.
I'm intrigued by it, but again, just Diablo 1 was my thing. Diablo 2 intrigued me, but got a little too grind heavy, and Diablo 3 was just not something I recognized. But 4 I might look into, and I'm hearing incredible things.
It was a lot of fun. It was really good. The level up slog at the end, before the end game content is actually, like, you can finish off the story, no problem, but end game content is the replayability bit. There is some there, but not the main bulk of it till the seasons start.
Okay.
So it's just kind of waiting for that to actually. It's almost like I'm sure Pokemon has done it actually. So
yeah, Pokemon is very much a franchise where you beat the game, but now you can start the game.
Yes.
Yeah. What was I playing recently that did that?
Yeah, just waiting on that to happen. In the meantime, Blizzard did have a sale, and I said I'd never buy So when Diablo 2 Remastered came out,
Oh,
it was right at the time that all the stuff was going on at Activision Blizzard.
controversy.
All the allegations, and I mean, not just allegations. The truth got out,
Yep.
and it's like, okay, that's fucking ridiculous. So I boycotted for a while, and I mean, I bought Diablo 4. Yeah, they've fired a lot of those people. Now, I'd still like to see Bob Kotick gone, but oh well. Maybe this Microsoft merger will make that happen.
Ooh.
In the meantime, they had a sale and they had Diablo 2 Remastered on for $15. So I picked that up.
You've been in a very Diablo mode since Diablo 4 came out, I take it.
Well, here's the thing. That was something I was very hyped for, and then I didn't want to buy because of everything going on when it released.
Well, you've given them at least less money.
So
still a
yes,
small
and
process.
it's been a long time since it came out now. So it's been over a year, I think, at this point. So yeah, I got myself some Diablo 2. It feels good to play. Jesus Christ.
Is it actually? Because I know that like the Warcraft 3 one was just phoned right in.
No,
so I know
this one was done well.
Ooh. What did you get it for?
Neat.
PC?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is kind of neat because there's a toggle button that you can switch back to the original graphics and everything.
I like that that's a common feature with these remakes these days.
Yeah, it's just really neat because the level of detail is incredible. Like, it looks really good.
I always feel like 2 was the one that I wasn't there for, so I couldn't find the fondness of, right?
So 2 I played a lot of, and then we ended up getting a flood, and back then they only had so much server space. So if you weren't active in the last 8 days, your character got deleted.
Oh, that is harsh.
So when we got a flood and had to go through insurance, I wasn't logged in, and I lost my level 99 character.
Oh, that's lame.
So
was it at least free really servers back then?
Yes.
Okay, so this is because I know Diablo 2 is a very early example of a popular online multiplayer game.
Yep.
So that is
tragic. In the remaster, I don't see that that restriction either, so that's good.
No, you just need to wait. That's Blizzard. For some reason, I was thinking you have to make an account for BethesdaNet.
No, not BethesdaNet.
Yeah.
Aside from that, I'm going to touch on it a little bit more because it has to do with today's topic. But like, I got the VR, and outside of Half-Life Alyx and Beat Saber, I've been kind of tempted to check out some of these things, and a lot of the games, well, I say a lot in quotes, that actually do appeal to me seem to have demos. So I've been checking out some of the demos on there.
I think that would be a pretty great way to kind of dip your toe into VR because I know it's a very vast pool. And I know the PC landscape is usually pretty generous about demos. And also, on that note, I've been into my fair share of demos as well because I got the newly acquired PS5. And
yes.
For the first one that I got, the first thing I actually did with my PS5 was I downloaded the demo of the upcoming Lies of P, which...
God damn, it's so good.
Oh my god, this... for a demo, this was like... Oh, I think I was like 5.5 hours into it. Like, it was
yeah,
beefy.
It's beefy to my understanding. I didn't finish it because I've been distracted with all the other things I've been anticipated for coming out, and once Lies of P comes out, I'm going to be picking it up at some point anyway, so...
Oh, day one. It is...
I got my feet wet with it, and it's like, okay, yeah, this went from a possible buy to a must buy for me.
Well, and I feel like that was a lot of the perception for a lot of the people who have their eyes on this game, right? Because it screams Bloodborne, but of course, you know, we have Souls-like FromSoft imitators come and go, and they always, like, you know, they kind of look like it. They've got a lot of the same trappings as your Dark Souls-esque games, but no one ever really gets it right, be it the game feel or how the enemies behave and things like that. This feels like the Bloodborne 2 that we have not been getting. And
I'll say this, Lies of P is the closest thing to a Souls-like that FromSoft has not done.
No, and it's cool because it's very much like, you could say ripoff, I would say like heavily inspired. I don't think it's a ripoff at this point. You could just say it's it's a style choice, right? Not unlike the Metroidvania. They're not ripping off Metroid. It's just now it's its own solidified genre or take on a gameplay
Yes,
style.
and I think the Souls-like genre has become its own thing now, right?
Oh, very much so. And yeah, so this demo was very successful on selling me on the product, which is what a good demo should do, I really think.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And on
Now,
top of that, oh, sorry.
something else, because I did the Liza P demo. However, did you catch our sudden surprise of appearance in the Final Fantasy 16 demo?
Yeah, we're stars at Square Enix's. What an interesting coincidence that was. Wow.
And oh, I was going to shout out, but no, I'm not going to.
So I was the Tyler, as you would suspect, and I played the starring role of almost dying apparently, and then we have my co-host Josh, or Joshua, as his appearance may lead to you in Final Fantasy 16, and
And we won't say where.
Maybe.
Yes, yeah, possibly spoiled the beginning.
It's a demo.
It is a demo.
Yeah.
But that would be ruined for me if I heard that.
No. Yeah. Sorry. But I did try out the Final Fantasy 16 demo, and I knew going into it like it was a very action heavy, but like it's really action heavy. Like this does not feel like an RPG anymore. This feels like a straight action game.
So I got it, and I've been playing it because I actually really enjoyed the demo. Tyler, I know you liked it, but you weren't in like with it. I think was your words.
That is a very good way and a way that I would describe it. Yeah, so first of all, the presentation is incredible. I've not seen Game of Thrones before, but God, is this ever just Game of Thrones?
It is very Game of Thrones.
And the presentation is a violent game. My goodness, there's
yes.
We're not shy from our more adult-oriented content on this podcast, and I just want to say that I was a little charmed early on in the game when there is a circumstance of event happening and someone goes fuck. It's like, okay, I feel like the humanity here. I like this.
So I will say this: they took a much more Western approach to dialogue and everything. So one of my tropes with anime and everything is the constant anime grunt, the legendary anime grunt. Final Fantasy VII does it all the time, and it bothers me. It bothers me there too. But so Final Fantasy 16, it doesn't really have a lot of that, and a lot of it's like what we expect out of a movie or a TV show on HBO. And so, quick little 2-minute spoiler here. Give 5 seconds for that. So you've beat the demo.
Yes.
When the king got killed and Joshua just got covered in blood.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this ain't your baby's Final Fantasy anymore. Jesus Christ.
Not even that though. Like at the beginning, the scene with the war, like they murdered those people.
Yes. Or when the second icon of fire tore into the Phoenix at the end.
Oh, that was shit, violent.
You felt that.
Oh yeah, no, that one was that's the thing. Like I said, I wasn't in with it, but I am very interested in it because the presentation of this game is masterful.
So I was very put off by hearing it had a lot of cutscenes and everything. And it's like I don't mind cutscenes. I can enjoy cutscenes. I figure one day I'll finish a Kojima game.
Yeah.
But knowing that is coming from Square and their orientation to cutscenes and very anime flair and whatnot, and then actually playing that demo and seeing what their flair of this was, like, oh, this isn't filled to the brim with your Japanese culture anime style. This is made for the West.
This is a brief discussion on our thoughts on Final Fantasy 16, which I will probably get at some point because like I said, I didn't not enjoy it. It just wasn't like I have to get this right away, like my feelings were with Liza P, which doesn't come out until September. So
well, once you get to the hub, you'll feel that Final Fantasy feel.
Well, so my highlight, at least from the demo, was, at least gameplay wise, was the fight with the Dragoon. I actually had a lot of
Yes.
fun with that particular fight, and that's where I went. I felt pretty meh on the gameplay for now. And it's also one of those things like they only give you so much to work with, and you see those subsystems. Like there's a lot on offer in the actual game, so it
Yes,
probably gets
there
a
is.
lot better, but it felt really limited to start, right? So
Yeah.
it wasn't quite giving me that draw. But
I
I
will
I
praise Square for whenever they release a demo, and this will start veering away from Final Fantasy 16, but whenever they seem to release a demo, it's always the beginning of the game.
yes. Or
And they
if
always
they
let you continue on.
this is I think this is something we could circle back to, but they use a lot of their demos with like the early ones to get feedback,
Yes.
which is a big deal. But before we get that far into the life of demos, let's reel her way back to the past. To I was gonna riff off the Angry Video Game Nerd intro, and I just completely forgot what the lyrics are. Anywho, so going back, what is your first thought of like demos, and like what comes to mind when you think of demos in the earlier days of our gaming history?
So let's ignore shareware and stuff because we did touch on that back on the DOS episode.
It's a different kind of beast, though. This
It
is
it is. So we're talking strictly demos. Honestly, it reminds me of the old PlayStation magazine and getting the demo disc in each copy.
so. I'm glad that you brought that up because I was trying to find a way that I could possibly work this in. Because I have once again asked my canonical buddy who comes to chill sometimes his thoughts on demos in general, and he didn't have a lot to say. Sometimes he's not too wordy about these things, but he did say that when he thinks demos, he thinks the old PlayStation magazine and the demo discs that they would provide. And I
Yes.
think that demo culture, to call it a culture anyhow, is very synonymous with early PlayStation because I know, like, I think of like compilations like Spyro and Twisted Metal and Crash Bandicoot all being like lumped together in these nice little package, and you would play those demos over and over again.
And in some cases, I don't exactly remember how this worked, but in games like Crash Bandicoot, you could get a demo for Spyro,
Yeah,
I
and
believe.
I think there was also a demo for Crash and Spyro as well, and it was like extra unlockable content where like I said, I don't know the details of it, but it was kind of like 100% completion bonus sort of thing, or maybe it was like a cheat that you would enter at the oh, I remember entering cheats at the intro screens. So
Yes.
it was
Now it's
actually
a credit card swipe.
oh jeez. But yeah, there was a lot of times where demos were kind of treated like they were pretty special, right? Like hey, video game communication wasn't what it was back in the day, right? Like we're
Oh God,
talking
no.
about Final Fantasy 16 now, but we have known about Final Fantasy 16 for the last 3 years, and we're getting information trickled out as we're back in the day. Is what is a Crash the Bandicoot?
Yes.
So
Cash
and then
Panuka.
Cash Banuka. You just try it out. And there's something magical about those kind of trial
So
days.
one thing that always bothered me was my very first demo disc. I think it was my first demo disc anyways. Had a game on it that I don't even remember much about it and what you did, but I just remember as a kid I had a blast with the demo of this game, and I have only found a copy that was ever released in Australia. I cannot find it anywhere else, and that is Team Buddies.
I'm sorry, that's what?
Team Buddies.
Okay. And what is a Team Buddies?
Well, I don't remember much about the actual game. I just remember you like built things. So like you put two cubes together that you got from the center, and it would give you a gun, or you could build like 3 or 6 together, and you get a tank. And so your team is running around collecting blocks and build protecting like your core, and you got to go steal other people's blocks and kill their core. So you'd always have to like run to the middle, get these blocks, build up a weapon and defense, and then go take an attack. And it's all real time. Like you're moving and building as you go. And it's like this frantic 1v everyone else, or free for all.
And this was for PlayStation 1?
Yeah.
Weird. Yeah,
Yep.
I can't say I've ever heard of that. Like, Did
No,
that just not get released here, or?
I don't think it did. If it did, I cannot find it for the life of me. I've only found it on eBay once, I think, and it was in Australia.
That's so weird. So I do think it's kind of interesting that when you think back to the early days of demos, there was a lot of prototype stuff that would slip through the cracks in a lot of these demos, and they would just be very much a different product when they came out. And I like how in the world of like, game preservation these days, we're actually uncovering a lot of these prototype build demos that came out. Like there was one I remember that made headlines, at least in our world of news, about the Aladdin game for Genesis. They might have even included it on the like Aladdin Lion King double pack that they came out with for everything a couple of years ago. And just completely different levels and enemies and stuff. And this was stuff that like you could get just in a disc randomly. And they're like, I'm going to pull an example that I did not play, but like this is Tomba. And then you end up getting Tomba, and like he looks completely different. The graphics are different. The music, like I think it's really cool that you can get those. This is what we're working on takes.
Yeah, no, but very much so. And like a lot of the demos that I can think back to, like, did Nintendo ever have any demos in North America, anyways?
So that is an interesting way to think, because you don't really associate demos with like cartridges, right?
No.
So when I think, because I didn't grow up with a PlayStation, when I think demos, at least in my early childhood, it's not actually properly built demos, but it's when you'd go to places like Walmart or what have you, and they would have like the Game Boy kiosks set up.
Yep.
And it would be in that booth that, like, you obviously couldn't remove it. They don't want you to steal this Game Boy. Oh, now thinking back on it, all the germs that must have been on these trial Game Boys. Oh, but you could go, and I very much remember something like when Pokemon Gold and Silver came out, they had one of those kiosks, and it would let you play for about 2-3 minutes, which admittedly is terrible for something like Pokemon, because it's enough to be like, welcome to the world of Pokemon, what is your name? And then
I didn't enter my name.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, I think it was like either the Game Boy or the cartridge was rigged in a way that it had a built-in timer to it. I'm not sure.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and that's how, like, these are special. You can find some of these cartridges out in the wild, and they'll usually say, like, for store trial purposes and stuff like that. And
yep.
They're very peculiar collector's items now, but they were kind of like demos for Nintendo games. And this is very much like a story of like my childhood misconception of how things work. Because I remember going to a store that had one of these like demo Game Boy kiosks. And I don't remember what game was on the Game Boy at the time. Wasn't my concern. Because I was looking at the Game Boy games in the shelf, and there was one of the Game Boy, like original Game Boy versions of Mega Man. And yeah, it helped me some Mega Man. So I got the clerk at the counter. I was like, I want to check out that Mega Man game, thinking that they were just going to boot it up on the trial Game Boy. But no, they just handed me the box to look at. And my perception of how the world works was very shattered that day.
It's not as magical as that.
It's not quite as magical as that, no. And, but still, to bring it back to the whole demo thing, like, I'm sure you remember going to random places. Like, I think McDonald's used to have, like, N64s and stuff like that. I think they had
GameCubes, too.
Yeah, and that's also something, sometimes they would have, like, I think this was, like, a big thing in hotels, too. I didn't really stay at hotels because I can't really say it, but there were, like, demo versions of stuff. Like, you could do, like, for the GameCube, you would, like, a trial of Mario Sunshine, Wind Waker, all that kind of stuff, right? Because it would be like, you can try them out if you wanted to, like, rent them for the weekend.
Well, going to Kmart as a kid, back when Kmart was in Canada.
Back when you existed.
Speaking of those kiosks, that's how I first tried a Virtual Boy. And the only way I've tried a Virtual Boy.
Oh, what a terrible experience. Eye germs. Oh.
Eye germs, little step stool that they had to bring out.
What a weird time we come from.
Oh, shit.
Do you remember what was, like, because there's only like 12 games for Virtual Boy. What were they sampling?
It was the Wario game.
Oh, that's like the only good one.
Yeah.
That's actually...
That's probably why.
That's false advertising right there. I don't like that. But
Why?
I
It
do
was, it
want
was
that.
on Virtual Boy.
Well, I was gonna say I want, yeah, but it's like this is what you're getting with the Virtual Boy. It's like no, this is what you can get, but nothing else. I
Yes.
do still want that really random Virtual Boy collection or Virtual Console kind of thing, though. Because come on, Nintendo, it might not be good, but we still want it. We want everything.
Yes. We
Yeah.
we just want to touch all the things still.
Ew, so many germs on my fingers.
Oh.
Now, to say that, like, aside from the like retail, like store demo exclusive, quote unquote demos, I actually do own a Nintendo demo cartridge.
So the demo cartridges for Nintendo, is that the not for resale?
So the ones that you might be thinking of, there are some not for resale. Like those are the ones like the store demonstration carts.
Yep.
But I have an officially released demo for the Nintendo DS. And
Okay.
it is one of the weirdest things Nintendo has done. I think it came with like the original gray brick Nintendo DS, and it's a demo for Metroid Prime Hunters.
Oh.
Yeah, it's called First Hunt, and it's just I think like the first mission or something like that. I've tried to play Prime Hunters, and it hurts because it's on the DS and it really wants you to use that touchscreen. But it is such a strange anomaly that I have an actual DS cartridge that's only purpose is just a demo.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
that's it's weird to think about.
It's weird to think that they would even. I guess this was also
They
before
had to
the time.
manufacture it.
Yeah, because this was before the time that the DS had any kind of storage, right?
Yeah.
You'd think like nowadays, well, not nowadays, like 10 years ago, the 3DS might come with a copy of like Mario Kart 7 or
Yes.
Super Mario 3D Land just on the console itself, right? As where back then, yeah, all they would have had available would have been just a cartridge for a demo. But it's also kind of sad and like, is it lazy to think that they made a demo to be a pack-in as opposed to just giving you a pack-in?
I mean, so
It's
that's
like extra
a hard
effort to do
question.
less. Yeah, it's weird.
Yes, but at the same time, they kind of stopped doing pack-ins at the start of consoles.
Yeah, now they're like extra limited editions where you just pay more for it instead of just naturally
Yes.
being a pack-in. And they don't even give you the game. They just give you the game data. It makes me sad.
Yes. Like when I got my 2DS XL, it had Mario Kart 7 installed on it.
Yep.
Up until some shady person broke in, hacked it, and brought it back.
How dare they?
Right? I don't know what happened there.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't get the cartridge, you don't get any of that kind of stuff. And I mean, okay, everyone, we've talked about this before. We are physical collectors. We like having it in our hands, even if we don't see the cartridge that often. It's in the case. It's just nice to have it in your hand.
I might sway a little away from that with the PS5. I've noticed. But the things that I want, who am I kidding? I'm gonna end up with a bunch of physical copies.
They cost the same.
Yeah, I know. That's the worst part.
Right? So if something's going to cost you $60 to download and $60 in the store, just get it at the store.
This is true. And just you can hold it. You can share it with your friends by just handing it to them.
You can cry yourself to sleep because you spent $90 on a subpar game.
Yeah, I think the most I've spent is $60 on an $8 game. I'm sure I could find different ways to inflate it, but it's a choice.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, to take her back to demos, kind of died around the PS2 era, didn't they?
Yeah, there's a few demos out for PS2 and even GameCube. They're bonus discs. I think they often Nintendo referred to them as.
Yes.
And PCs, you didn't really see them.
Not then. I think PC is demo king now.
A little bit, yes. And we'll get into what I mean by that.
Well, we'll get there
as we get into the PS3 era, because PS2 they didn't have internal storage or anything, so it's still coming in on discs. I know different franchises usually had like branded demo discs, like Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut used to have PlayStation 2 demo discs.
Demos did used to come with food back in the day.
Yes.
That's so weird.
Do you remember the cereal box games? Like Roller Coaster Tycoon and Clue?
I have this funny feeling that Candyland gave me malware as a child. Yeah. Yeah, what a bad game to get malware from. That's not quite demos, but I do know that things
No,
came in that
yeah.
kind of style, right? Like you said, like the Pizza Hut promotion, there were definitely things like that. Or, I don't know, they were just I was gonna say they were like demo discs, and it was like, oh, geez.
Yep.
I was thinking musically, but still.
No. Oh, dear.
Yeah, they handed these things out like demos, because they are demos.
Because they are demos.
Yes.
That's probably where they're like, okay, we're just going to hand this out with everything, right? Like, and you know what? They did work. Like, going back to PS1, like, Medieval, that's why I got a copy of Medieval, is because I played the demo on that. And that's why I got Medieval,
played a lot
too.
of Tomb Raider demo.
Tomb Raider, yep.
Yeah. And like, Spyro. The game that I've always wanted because of and it was kind of cool because you could kind of cross promote the demo disc with the magazine itself, right? Like I didn't actually have a PlayStation or a subscription, but it would be really cool. It's just like you open it up, you're reading about something like, oh, I don't know, Jersey Devil. And then it's just like, oh, it's also like a 20-minute demo on this disc. And it's just like, get hyped.
Yeah.
Probably not very good. But
it was the truest way to hype up someone, too. Like, it gave you a chance to try it before you buy it, right? And we don't really have that luxury too much anymore unless the developer chooses that.
Well, and there was also like they put a little bit more work into trying to give you the full like what you're in for. So like some games, their demos would have multiplayer.
Yep.
Which is just
Team Buddies did.
Yeah, and you're only going to play this one level and as one character, so on and so forth. But again, we played what we had back in the day, and you would just be playing it for hours.
Oh, you played the living crap out of it.
Yeah. So but I know it's slowed down a bit, right?
When would you say that demos kind of like started dying off? Like, I guess age of the internet, right?
Well, it's weird to say that they died off. I would say more so they took a different shape. And
yes,
actually,
when did physical demos die off?
Physical demos probably died like, towards the tail end of the PS2. The PS3 might have had demos, but I feel like they would have been leaning more into the digital trend at that point, right?
Yes,
you might have. For some wacky reason, I want to say like Europe was still getting PS3 demos, but all the same, here's a weird transformation of the store kiosk demo. Is I never actually did this. I grew up in a pretty rural place, so I didn't really have access to a lot of places that had this, or if I did, I didn't know about it. But the DS had the wireless download play function, right? So that was how you could, like, let's say you have a copy of Mario Party. I don't. But you can upload the game to me, and I can play it with you for free, but it's just I have limited restrictions because I don't own the game. That's actually probably one of the coolest things that the DS did that no one really utilized.
That's actually really cool. Yes.
It is.
I like that.
It would download a temporary data, and it would be one of those things where it is on your DS until you turn it off for the most part. And stores used to have wireless download setups with cartridges that had demos that they would download to your DS.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I think they're like, you can actually collect these cartridges where you could broadcast. It would be like, I think 2 or 3 games at a time. You go to your local GameStop or what have you, and you just bring the DS, put it on wireless mode, and bam, you got yourself something to try out.
I like that. That's really cool. That's innovative. And just imagine how much easier it would have been to play 4 Swords if you could do that. Just share it with 4 friends around you, or 3 friends around you.
No, they wanted you to have a copy for everyone. Nintendo got real weird with them. Yeah. And strangely enough, if I'm not mistaken, now it worked very differently. This is just more of a tangent on the download play thing. I think the Game Boy Advance was sort of capable of it as well. You can play a game with another person with 1 copy of the game so long as you have the link cable and stuff. I'm not entirely sure, but I remember one of the Sonic Advance games, or possibly even Sonic Battle, had a couple mini games that were only multiplayer exclusive, but you only needed 1 cartridge. You just had to be plugged up to other Game Boys.
Oh, really?
Wild to think the fact that they were working with fake memory.
Yeah, no, that's kind of cool. I like that.
Tune in later when we actually have a dedicated discussion on how wild the handheld genres were.
Oh God, yeah.
And I think that was definitely part of that transition where, like, physical demos were starting to die. We were obviously experimenting more with like digital media and stuff like that.
Yep.
And the trippiest thing about that is that they were like disposable demos. Like you played them,
Yeah.
turned it off, and then they disappeared forever.
Just imagine you had to stand around Walmart playing the demo
Yeah.
until because you didn't want to turn it off.
Yeah. I know that a time that I played a lot of demos, and it's weird because they don't feel like the demos of like yesteryear as we are discussing. But when I got my Xbox 360 and, days of like the Xbox Live Arcade and stuff like that, demos were a godsend back then.
I mean, demos were at least a huge part of gaming back in the day. Maybe not so much now. Demos are a different field nowadays compared to what they were. We'll say that.
I don't have time is how I feel when I look at demos now. Well, I played
Like
this one. I could just play the whole game.
I tried out 5 demos on my VR today.
Damn.
Just ones I've been meaning to get to. But going back to my previous question, I would say that physical demos probably died around the PS3 era. And I want to say that that's also the era that PCs were starting to really gain their popularity with gaming again.
You started to hear the term gaming PC around that time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, so we have Steam. Thanks, Gavin.
When did Steam actually happen?
Around Half-Life 2. So that was 2003, 2004.
Wow, that's a lot older than I would guess.
It was just before that. So it's been around for a long time. So there's one thing I want to bring up, and maybe it's wrong for me to be harping on this, but there is an interview. So so Steam's refund policy, at least in Canada, is you can play for 2 hours, no more, or return it within 14 days of purchase.
I was going to say 2 hours of logged gameplay. Yeah.
Yes. So back when Prey was being released, I think it was a while ago now. Prey 2, I guess. But they rebranded it. Prey's a messy subject. But regardless, Arcane Studios Prey. So from the creators of Dishonored. Mm-hmm. In a interview when they were asked why there was no demo out for any of their games, I'm looking it up and trying to make sure. Yeah, Arcane's president, Ralph Colatonio, I probably butchered that name because I don't think there's a space in the name, but it's just a resource assignment thing. We couldn't do a demo on both the console and PC. We had to choose. Besides, PC has Steam, and Steam players can just return the game prior to 2 hours, so it's like a demo already.
Touching, because like they make a good point, but it comes across rather vindictive.
Well, you can't just pass the buck to say, oh yeah, just do a refund, because Steam is also the home of a lot of indie games and whatnot. And if they're getting refunds out the wazoo because people just want to try their game, that's a lot of processing fees. And yeah, Steam's rich. It doesn't matter to them, I'm sure. But those indie companies see that. And they're like, okay, we're getting some sales. Oh, and it's bouncing all over the place and they have to keep issuing refunds? Fuck off.
Yeah,
not everyone's as big as you, Arcane.
That's a good way to completely mess with this. I know that there's actually been a couple small developers that put out like games that were beatable in like about an hour or so, and they like people were actually just making public points like, hey, you could just play this game, beat it, and get the refund, like it's a good time, and just completely sapping the energy of these small developers to even bother making games anymore.
Yes, and a lot of that is because people look down on short games. And I don't think they should. The best. And Mega you know Man. What? I Mega will Man be is great. Mega Man is great. I will be fully transparent here. I did that with a game. I beat it within an hour. And there was still stuff I could have done, but I beat the main story, and that's all I cared about. So I refunded it. And no, that wasn't a good thing to do for me. So I went out and bought a physical copy of it.
Oh, that's a nice bit of redemption. I was going to say, Shame. But I did something
Yes.
similar, but it wasn't with Steam. It was actually with just a physical DS game.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, this would have been back when like the source was like I think it was the source anyway. I can't remember specifically where it was,
Radio
but
Shack?
yes, the Radio Shack. I think all the same. I picked up a copy of Spirit Tracks, Zelda Spirit Tracks for the DS, and I beat it within a month. And they had a return policy of 30 days. And when I went to return it, they were like, "What's wrong with it?" I'm like, "I beat it." And I'm like, "Okay, well, you can't do that, but because you didn't know, we will do this for you once."
Oh, jeez. That's
So,
funny.
I have done that, but in a very different context. Yeah. Now,
So, one thing I will say about Steam now, because there was an era of gaming around the PS3 time, that demos just ceased to exist. Like, you found the odd one out there, but there weren't too many. People weren't putting out demos anymore. They just wanted you to buy the game. And I'm glad to say that like that seems to be turning around, seeing a lot more demos. Square Enix has been really good with demos. Like they do a lot of like questionable things, but they're doing demos perfectly.
they always give you a chance to try things, which is nice because they've been pumping out a lot of things.
Yes. But like there was a time when demos were everywhere, then demos weren't. And it's nice to see it coming back. And even to a point where I believe it was last week. So I think once a year, Steam does a thing on PC. Well, obviously, that's called the Steam Next Fest.
Okay.
And what that is 7 days of demos where they broadcast a bunch of indie games and non-indie games, but a lot of indie games that have demos available for you. And the whole point is just to get mass amounts of people to try out these indie games that look appealing.
I like that. I like that a lot just because it shines a light on it.
It shines a light on it, getting people to try demos. And like I see it all over Twitter. I see it on Instagram. People actually get out and try these games out that they normally wouldn't. And it's great.
Well,
and it puts the direct spotlight, like it's right on the front page of the store on Steam. Just Steam Next Fest demos for the next 7 days, and it would give you like recommended ones based on your library and all that kind of stuff. It's great.
Well, and the thing I think that you can kind of take that back to the days of disc demos, where because there are lots of demos out there for a lot of things nowadays.
Oh yeah.
And this could make the argument that in the end we are all just truly suggestive sheep, but it is kind of nice to just have like a little curated selection and be like, hey, here's a few things you might like. You know, it's a nice charcuterie board of gaming experiences. And as opposed to just blindly searching and then you're just like, oh, this happens to have a demo, but I'm also already so like fatigued from looking through random stuff that I don't even care to download it.
Well, that's pretty much where I've got with the VR stuff. Like I've gone through search specifically for VR demos and then download a bunch of demos and it's like, all right, I'm done.
It's very easy to look at so many things and just be like, I don't want to do anything now.
Yeah.
Now, this is a very random kind of experience I've had in the world of demos. Is how I learned about Steam actually was due to a quote-unquote demo version of Binding of Isaac on Newgrounds.
Ah.
Yeah, it's really, like, because Newgrounds, you know, anyone who was there and played a lot of Flash games back in the day, you would expect, like, a small bite-sized kind of thing as a Flash game, and you could still sink hours into it, but it is what it is. But it was interesting to finish a Flash game, and then it was like, get the full version on Steam. It's like, what do you mean? This isn't it?
Yeah.
And I thought
Binding of Isaac had quite the story growing up.
Oh, it's a game that deserves a whole discussion of its own. But I thought it was really cool, like using that avenue to advertise your game. Because again, I had never heard of Steam before, and you know, just this quote unquote underground website where you get to try this out, and it opens my eyes. Like that's pretty much my first experience with indie games as a whole. Yeah, could go in a whole different direction as to how indies are a big old well, we got Mindies for that.
Yes.
But
we we could go on a topic on indies as a whole, but that's going to be a long episode.
But we talking demos right now. And
Yes.
yeah, I thought that was a very interesting way to kind of convey a trial version of your game. It's almost like shareware again.
So something that can be kind of demo-y, but not at the same time, is betas.
I was actually gonna say, like, what is your thoughts on like demos? Do you think it's kind of in the same camp of things like, for example, Steam Greenlight and early access and stuff like that? Because they're technically demo builds.
They are early access stuff you generally buy into.
Yes.
But depending on the game, they can be like solid. Like I got Factorio when it was in early access, and it was in early access for years after I got it. It still felt like a full game, and it was polished.
Well, and not only that, now, because still think it feels like a demo per se, but you get to watch the game grow.
Yes.
Which is a very interesting side to see of it. Now, you can say, like, you spend money, it's different from demos in that regard, but at the same time, it's still serving that purpose of selling you on the experience, right?
Yes. And oftentimes, like, early access is cheaper than the actual full product.
Oh, yeah, it's almost like Kickstarting.
So, what about betas, though? So, as an example, Diablo 4 had a beta that I participated in. Sometimes they're public, sometimes they're private. You get to try the game free, but, like, after launch, there is no play for free.
So
I got to play Diablo 4 before purchasing it. Granted, it was a segment of the land. Elden Ring, not that I was part of the network test or anything, but there's quite a few people on that getting to try Elden Ring out, secluded to a certain area, very much like a demo. Pit People, which was the last game released by Behemoth at the time of recording. They're working on Alien Hominid Invasion right now, but
I'm excited for that.
It was a private beta that I got in on for Pit People.
That would be... Speaking of private trials, actually, I haven't gotten to do many of those, but the one that I was most excited to do and got selected for was the trial demo for Smash Bros. For 3DS.
Oh, yeah.
And they kind of made you jump through some hoops for that. Like, I think you had to be, I don't think it was called My Nintendo at the time, but whatever their, like, Nintendo Club membership was, I think you had to, like, apply through that. And
okay.
Yeah, I randomly got a notification on my 3DS. It's like, you've been selected for the 3DS demo of Super Smash Brothers. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. And I played the shit out of it. And something about that approach kind of just makes you feel like I've been selected to try out this new game.
Yes, and it's not complete, but I mean, at the same time, a lot of the demos that were released in stores and stuff, they weren't complete either.
I actually think that, like, a beta version of a game sounds more, or has more of that kind of demo vibe than an early access. Like, for example, the Street Fighter 6 that just came out, and a lot of fighting games, actually, they'll usually do, like, an online beta test where really all you can do is fight against other people, which is fine, because that's primarily what you're going to be doing anyway. Most people who take fighting games seriously are trying to fight other real people. But it's a limited time thing, and you get a full hands-on experience of the game. It could be improved due to it, but it's still enough to make you figure out, like, do you want this or not? That's its entire goal, is to sell you on a product.
And now, I think Street Fighter 6, it had the public test demo, or test beta, and then it also has a demo.
It does have a demo, yes. It requires a Capcom Club membership, which is why I haven't done it. Not a lot to ask, and yet somehow too much to ask. But all the same,
stop asking for our stuff. Can we just sign in with, like, Google or something?
Or just none at all. Just let me know. I guess if it has online functionality,
Yeah. And if you want to take your account other places, then you can't just log into a PS5, or if your PS5 breaks, you lose all your progress. I don't know.
Ooh. The 3DS, I actually also dabbled with a lot of demos. It was a pretty good little console for demos. But
that's too bad I never got into the 3DS era.
The eShop felt pretty starved at times, so when they gave you something, it was like, oh my god, finally, something new.
Gotta check this out.
Yeah, yeah. I can't speak to. I don't remember the Wii really having demos, but I also know that I didn't really use the Wii much growing up.
No, the Wii was a novelty. You got it for Wii Sports,
I
then you
didn't
left
even
it
get it for
alone.
Wii Sports. I got it for Smash Bros. I will admit, Mario Kart Wii is kind of one of a kind. And other than that, Virtual Console.
Yep.
But I don't remember demos. I'm sure it had them, but if it did, I wasn't caring to try them out.
So today we still have demos much more than we did during the PS3, Xbox 360 era. Demos are kind of everywhere now, but then there's this new type of demo that is really being pushed on people, and that is the trials, where they give
I
you
was
X
just,
amount of time.
yeah, I was gonna say, we talking the game trial. Now, the game trials,
Yes,
I've noticed at least, because PlayStation, their like most premium membership, they offer game trials, do they not? Same with
I think it's their
Nintendo.
extra, not premium. It's
Yeah,
so the middle tier.
and yeah, when you have the Nintendo Switch Online, you also have access to game trials. And
Yes.
I like it. I've not really bothered with it though, just for the fact that I don't like being told how like a window that I have to it's like I have to schedule to get my games. I'm sorry, I game on my time, not your time.
Yes. You can't just hop into something and check it out. You are kind of pushed, and if you think you're going to be getting up at any point during that time, because it's usually what, 2 hours that
A
they
game
give you.
trial?
Yeah,
I know that with
90 minutes.
Nintendo, I don't know if they give you a time limit on how long you can have to play, but it's usually like you have a 3 day span to do the game trial.
Okay.
So, if you've got the time to grind it out, heck, you might even be able to beat it, but at the same time, it's just like, surprise, this is your weekend now.
Yep.
And I also don't like the thought of, and maybe this is just my aversion to just digital media, but I don't like how to do a game trial, you still have to download the entire game onto your console.
Yeah.
And it
Because
doesn't go away when
you
the
have
trial's done. You just
no.
don't get to play it.
Yes.
It's like a
Just in
ghost
case
of a
you really
bad
like the
time.
trailer.
Yeah. I mean, it is kind of okay. So I can see the positive flip side of that, where if you did enjoy the trial enough to actually purchase the digital version, it's there ready to go,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool. Which also kind of brings me back to, again, Square Enix is really good for this in their demos. And I'm kind of in the middle about how I feel about it, but I think it is a good idea that their demos are, like you said earlier on, usually the first like 2 or so hours of the game. And it's kind of cool that you have the option to carry over your progress from the demo into the actual game.
Yes, and that's because
Like,
they started off the first couple hours, right? So the
yeah,
the one
and
issue with that, and it's kind of like what you ran into with Final Fantasy 16, it can be a little bit of a slower burn, right? So you aren't
there,
getting the full experience of the combat or anything. It's not like a secluded look at what we did. This is more of a this is the opening to our game.
yeah, and I mean, it's something as epic as Final Fantasy. It is going to I find those games really got their teeth sunk into you at about like the 5 hour mark or so. Not the older
Yes.
ones; they had like 20 minutes to impress you. Like,
Yes.
geez, you're an hour in Final Fantasy 7, and I'm pretty sure you're like well halfway through Midgar. So
Yes.
it's been a while since I played the original, but all the same, as where now, they have these much bigger elaborate things. They can't just, they're no longer commercials at this point. So, but my issue, and this is a personal thing, but when I'm playing a demo, I don't take it as seriously as playing the full game. So,
Yep.
I'm more inclined to just not search every nook and cranny and all that kind of stuff, and then to find out it's like, well, that was your opening to the game. It's like, well, I'm gonna want to do it again as much as I don't want to do it again, so I can do it better.
Or if it's the game trial, it doesn't really give you the option to to go explore because
No,
you're limited to how much time.
no. So I like it as an idea, as something in principle or in practice. Though it's not really something I take advantage of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's if that's the only way to try it out, then maybe.
You have a good demo though when you replay the demo.
And that's what I did with 16 is
So
I didn't replay the demo, but I got rid of the save file.
so you did what I was apprehensive of.
Yes, I
Ah,
redid all the beginning. again.
Admittedly, if and when I do get it, I'm going to start it just from the very beginning, just because.
Yeah.
I don't know. Something seems weird to like get as far as I did and then come back to it. Like, let's say I pick it up in like 2 to 3 months, and it's just like, you want to start where you left off. I was like, no.
What's my guy's name again?
Yeah. I'm in it. I know that.
Yep. So am I.
Yeah. I wonder how I'm doing.
You got anything else on demos? I mean, it's a shorter topic. Demos were great back in the day. They disappeared for a bit. Now they're back in multiple ways. Some good, some bad. They both have their pros and cons.
Demos are supposed to be short and sweet and sell you on the product. And if we can clock in this episode at a short one that's sweet, hopefully it sells people on the product. But yeah, I think as far as a whole, like, I mean, to give my like final thoughts on demos, I still think that they very much have their place these days. Like, there have been in recent years good chunks of demos that have definitely, like, when Monster Hunter comes out with a demo, oh my god, I am on top of that stuff.
Yes.
And they're very, very successful when they are successful. Now, that said, I also have a hard time finding the time for demos because, you know, they feel like not even a half experience. It's weird. It's very weird to say, but it's hard for me to take a demo seriously. But when a demo is good, boy, it lands.
Yes, absolutely.
That's my. Do you got any final thoughts on demonstration games?
I miss the PlayStation discs.
I miss
and magazines
days.
too.
Yeah,
but aside from that, it's
it's just not the same getting a PDF and a digital download, is it?
No, it's not.
Makes me shudder. But yeah, I think I'm spent on this one. If you want to do the honors and close us on out.
Yeah, I'll close this on out before we hit the 5-minute mark. Guys, thank you for joining us for a shorter episode of the Optional Boss podcast. You can always comment or shoot us a message, DM or email at Optional Boss PC on Instagram and Twitter, or at Optional Boss Podcast at gmail.com. One of these days I will get these right the first time. And
hopefully they're contacting us by then.
Oh dear. And again, if you haven't left a review and you like the show, by all means, throw us a review. We're supposed to be asking for them. And yeah, thanks for listening. Bye for now.
Bye!